and starting transcription as well. So again, my name is Melissa Wenzel, Built Environment Sustainability Administrator. You're all welcome to today's December 7th, our second quarterly meeting for the Minnesota Built Environment. There's a lot of you. There's almost 40 of us on the call, and therefore I would love for you to include your contact information or anything that you'd like to share about yourself. So in chat, please introduce yourself. If you'd like to include your name, the organization you are connected with, and where you're physically at in this great world of ours, and what brought you here. Feel free to chat that. And I can get started with Melissa Wenzel, MPCA, St. Paul, MN, supporter of all things sustainability, especially the built environment. All right, so feel free to go ahead and do that if you'd like. Again, share as much or as little as you'd like. And I'd also like to do a little bit of a Menti opportunity. So if you wouldn't mind, so this is kind of an icebreaker for us all today. If you wouldn't mind going to menti.com and entering that code. And this isn't just an activity to get you all thinking about the built environment, but it'll help us know what phrases you use for the built environment. There are times that I'll use terms that may not be as familiar to other people, and I'm really curious what sort of terms might you use for the built environment. So I'll give folks about a minute for either introductions in the meeting chat or for the Menti activity, or both. Olivia getting a can't display content message. Anybody else having any issues with viewing slides? And I'll see if I can let people chat. No issues there. And Olivia, I think I did see you exit and come back in, correct?
Yeah, I tried to exit, come back in. Maybe I'll try restarting my computer quick.
Okay. Let me know if you're still having that problem, if you're still here, Olivia. I have a plan B for slides.
Sounds good, thank you.
All right, good information within the chat. A lot of people representing a lot of different organizations inside and outside of Minnesota. There are some people who've spoken at previous conferences with myself and others on the built environment, so that's great. We've got some NPCA management as well. Please go ahead and fill out that Menti form, that activity, if you do have a chance. I'm gonna log in as host to see how things are coming along. Olivia, any better?
No, unfortunately, it's just a black screen. That's being shared, so I can't see any slides.
I'm wondering if other people are having the same problem if they're not seeing the Menti link. So, all right, let's go to Plan B for the slides. People able to see them now?
I can see it now. Thanks, Melissa.
Excellent.
It was put in the chat too.
Thank you.
The slides now are just tiny down on like the bottom bar.
Is that the case for everybody?
Nope, look good to me.
Okay. Emily, I'm wondering if that is how you have yours viewed.
Yeah, I'm in gallery, so I'll go.
Okay.
super. Oh wait, no wait. Here we go. No, it switched.
Okay, great. All right. Giving folks one more minute. Looks like we have no more comments coming in, so we are closing the comments. And we'll take a look at those a little bit later, what the answers are. But let's continue on with the slides today. So what we're going to be covering today is we have a few updates to share with you all today. We'd like to talk from the perspective of those who attended or presented at the Builder Use Conference. We'd like to give you a recap from Minnesota's perspective. At that particular conference, we did actually have Becker County staff, Sandy, speak on what their waste diversion program is like. And so we'll hear also afterwards a few words from her about that. Annika and I will be sharing some funding opportunities, and then we'll dive into recommendation-specific updates. We have 3 that we're putting a lot of effort on in the short term, and we'll talk about where those are at for now. We'll have an open forum. It'll depend on how much time we take for the rest of the topics, on how much time we'll have for those open forums, but we'd like to hear updates from around Minnesota. This is also the chance where people can say maybe what they want to work on but can't. So they can talk about barriers, where they might need resources from other parts of the state, even other states, other countries. We do have, I believe, at least one person from Canada joining us today, so thank you. We've been connecting with people from Canada at various conferences over the last few months. And again, if we do have additional time, we welcome ideas and updates from other built environment stakeholders from around anywhere on this planet or in this galaxy, I guess. That would be great to hear from folks. And I know that Timony from California joined us. We are actually hosting these meetings very similarly to how she hosts the deconstruction, what is the terminology? Timony, what do you do? Work group?
Bay Area Deconstruction Work Group.
Excellent, thank you. And so I'm honored to have you here because we are modeling some of these meetings after other organizations' meetings. So next up, before we get started, I would like to share a very specific thing. And I believe I shared my volume on my computer. I may have to double check that. But we did have a really, really great turnout from Minnesota for this conference. We had 34 people register for the event from Minnesota. And I think there was something like maybe 7 people who went to the 2019 conference. Granted, of course, being virtual versus in person makes a huge difference, right? But that's such a great showing. And I'm really, really grateful for all the people that were able to attend the conference. And something happened there. Something really good happened. And I'd like to share that right now. And feel free to verbalize if you cannot
Next, we've
hear
got
something.
Deconstructor of the Year.
Can people hear that? Do people hear anything?
Yes, yes.
Excellent. Okay.
Next, we've got Deconstructor of the Year. We've got, I believe it's Madrone Construction. We've got Reeves, Hawaii, and we've got Hennepin County. And drum roll, the Deconstructor of the Year is Hennepin County, Minnesota, for supporting salvage, reuse, and recycling through their deconstruction grants to homeowners. Do we have a representative from Hennepin County on our call who would like to unmute?
Hi, yeah, this is Olivia from Hennepin County. Super exciting and appreciate just being part of this event and getting to connect with all the great people here. I know we have a lot of work ahead to continue on in these efforts and connect with others to promote it, but I think we're just getting started and leaving here with a lot of good inspiration. So thank you all.
Absolutely. Thanks, Olivia.
Thanks, Olivia. Congratulations. That is quite an honor to be given that award.
As you know, it is the holiday.
At the national present. Sorry about that. We've been working with Hennepin County over the last 2 years and their dedication to the built environment and the goals. When I say Hennepin County, I'm also talking about all the cities and all the organizations within the county that really have made a huge effort towards the built environment. And so at this time, Natalie and Sandy, I'd like to have you talk about your experiences at being at the conference. Natalie as a board member and organizer of the conference, and Sandy as a participant. We'll get to how things went for you speaking next.
Thanks, Melissa. Hi, everyone. My name is Natalie Hennigan, and I'm attending this meeting wearing 2 hats. My day job is at a place called Rethos. Rethos is a regional nonprofit organization. I'm based here in St. Paul, but we have staff and offices in Winona and in Little Falls, Minnesota. Our work is all about old buildings. We work to help people and communities reuse and take good care of their old buildings. And in recent last 18 months or so, reusing old buildings has expanded to include reusing building materials and teaching the general public about the value of deconstruction and salvage. Though reuse and keeping buildings out of the trash has long undergirded all of our work as advocates for preservation and reuse throughout Minnesota. My other hat, like Melissa mentioned, is a board member of Build Reuse. I joined the board in January of this year. I was really excited to dive into conference planning. My work at Rethos is all about education and getting information out to the public, so that was a logical fit for me. And it was the first, virtual conference like this, so it was a lot of new things for the committee. Build Reuse is an entirely volunteer-run organization. And we were proud to get this conference off the ground. And we had over 330 registrants from all over the world. And all of the recordings of the conference sessions are available for you to peruse and revisit and learn from. I was really excited too to have such a positive representation from Minnesota. And I was lucky to facilitate a couple sessions, one with Matt Rohn and Paul Jackson from the city of Northfield, talking about deconstruction efforts within St. Olaf campus. And then also a presentation from Melissa Wenzel and Sandy Gunderson about Becker County's amazing waste diversion efforts. So looking ahead into next year, Build Reuse is toying with the idea of a hybrid conference. So nothing, of course, can beat the in-person connections that we make at conferences and the opportunity to visit a new place. But also, of course, we know the value of having virtual education and opportunities for people to access this content from wherever they are. So stay tuned for information about next year's conference. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Sandy Gunderson and Lisa Wusso. She is a Minnesota Green Corps member for Becker County. We're stationed up in Becker County. Detroit Lakes, Minnesota is the county seat. And I attended the Deconstruction Reuse Conference as an attendee and as a presenter. We got a chance to share what we did or what we've been doing with our reuse project in rural Minnesota to really figure out what to do, how to do it, and then just sharing what we found and our challenges and our great opportunities here. And it was really interesting to hear what other folks had to say, what questions they had. It was very interesting, and I'm looking forward to learning more from everybody here too.
And Natalie and Sandy and Lisa as well, for the presentations that you saw outside of Minnesota or different from the ones that you were directly connected to, what was it like? What were you expecting, and what might have been kind of some aha moments for you on those?
This is Sandy. For me, the aha moment was how many actual organizations there are that represent the built section. Since we're new in this, I didn't know. And so it was really interesting to find that out. And then the different viewpoints. There's lots of different viewpoints in the built community.
Similarly, yeah, the diversity of speakers from, architects to academics to deconstruction contractors to, nonprofit admin folks, like all sorts of people are involved in making this machine, function. And I really appreciate having a variety of geographic perspectives too, and hearing from different clusters of activity on the West Coast, or on the East Coast, or wherever. So yeah, that was fun for me to see.
And for me, I did end up presenting on every single day of the conference, or at least I gave an introduction to 2 different presentations. Sandy and I co-presented on the middle day. And having been to the conference in person in 2019, of course, I have a soft spot for that in-person connection. But I also saw that more than twice the number of people joined this year. And that's also partly because of the thoughtfulness and the generosity from the board, who allowed students or recent college grads to attend at a student rate. And I was given the great opportunity to send a message to all of Minnesota's Green Corps members to attend, and I think at least 5 of them did. So of course I expected Lisa to attend, the Green Corps member that I'm mentoring myself, but we had Green Corps members from around Minnesota who had no idea what was going on, and that's the whole point, is to provide a platform, literally and figuratively, for information sharing. Natalie, do you know if there's anything wrong with sharing the links of the presentation, that PDF document, widely, and maybe something I should have asked you ahead of time and not on the spot?
I think that is for sharing. Yes,
okay.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, great. When I have Sandy present, I'll copy and paste that link. If anybody has it handy, feel free to throw it in chat. But you can watch every single presentation from the entire conference. And it's just a PDF document with just the description of the speaking opportunity and a link to actually watch the presentation. So granted, you don't get everything that obviously we got from attending the conference, but for those presentations that you might feel more closely connected to, or ones that you might have missed, I still haven't seen them all, so I'm glad to have these links myself. Feel free to check them out. So it is not a locked document, it's just a PDF document where you click on a link. So it was a great conference. I think it really helped remind me that there is so much dedicated and interest in these topics. Like Sandy was saying, all the different organizations connected to it, it is varied. And that's the beauty of the built environment. Of course, it is inclusive of so many topics and so many initiatives. There's so much overlap with social, racial, environmental justice issues, with local government plans and resiliency plans for climate change. There's just so much that people can really get involved. Homelessness, rebuilding buildings so they can be housed for those that are experiencing homelessness, just goes on and on. So of course there's almost something for everybody who feels connected to this these topics. So anybody else want to say anything about the conference?
Yes, hi, this is Timony Hood, and I've been a big fan of Build Reuse for a long time, and I thought this year's conference was amazing. I wanted to share that I especially like Dr. Elma Dermisovic, I believe it's the name. She did a keynote about the research on buildings as material banks going on in the European Union, and it was fascinating about how they're actually cutting and panelizing chunks of commercial buildings to look at what the real embodied carbon impacts are on reuse. And I would also say that something that was different this year was that Google was a sponsor and also gave an excellent presentation. And I just feel like things are really amping up in terms of the commercial sector and potential funding to do larger scale reuse. So that was another big change this year. And thanks to all of the organizers.
This is Matt Rohn, and I was impressed by the emphasis on how this can be done financially, reducing the costs of deconstruction and really bringing them almost in line in some cases with demolition, and a lot of good statistical information and sharing of resources at different places.
Matt Rohn is connected to City of Northfield, St. Olaf, and I finally got to watch your presentation, the presentation you gave at the Build Reuse conference from start to finish Friday afternoon. And I'm like, why did I not see this before? And oh my gosh, incredible work. And
thanks. One thing I would add is our emphasis was on how to use academic civic engagement from colleges and universities to help with staffing matters in a way, but also to the benefit of the college students.
That reminded me why we are trying to connect with other players around Minnesota or around the world on these topics as it relates to the goals and initiatives here in Minnesota. But just that collaborative effort, a small idea can snowball, bad pun for snow day here in Minnesota, can snowball into some pretty amazing, no, not a bad pun, okay, thanks. Can really snowball into some pretty incredible developments. And I hadn't realized, even somebody who kind of started getting the topic going to try to have more deconstruction on St. Olaf's campus, I honestly didn't know where the city and the staff and the students had actually taken that initiative. I'm not sharing much because I really want you to see his presentation, so I don't want to give too much away, but we'll share those links shortly and look forward to connecting with others on that. Maybe a hand is raised. I have 3 screens to look at everything. Jeff has his hand raised. Go ahead, Jeff.
Thanks, Melissa. Hi, everyone. I did not attend the Build Reuse conference, but I just had a couple quick thoughts, partly because I'm not going to be able to be on the call till the end to share this information. But I was lucky enough to recently participate in Governor Wall's trade mission to the UK and Finland in early November, mid-November. And the comment that was just made about the Europeans built-in carbon and embedded carbon, we saw a number of examples of opportunities for the state of Minnesota to partner with those 2 nations, particularly around built infrastructure, mobility, all sorts of related topics. So if anybody's interested in learning a little bit more, please reach out. I also wear a consulting hat, and the topic about social impacts and environmental impacts around all the topics we're talking about is something that I've been immersing myself into learning much more about, and would love to talk with people about that as well. So I appreciate, Melissa, the opportunity to listen to this for a little bit, and then I'm going to have to duck out in about 20 minutes. Thanks.
So Jeff and I connected when I was trying to find a document that the company he's representing, Ecotone, or one of the organizations he's connected to, had worked with Better Futures to figure out how much carbon is saved and how many materials are saved when a standard house in Minnesota is deconstructed versus demolished and landfilled. And so they have a document that through a project that they got funding through LCCMR on, I was able to connect with Jeff and learn a lot more about that. So I haven't had a chance to talk with him since he got back from his trade mission, but the fact that we have people here who've been attending trade missions with our governor, pretty cool. Looks like, let's see, whose hand is up? Sydney, go ahead, Sydney.
Hi, Signe Erickson here, and I just started working with recycling, and I have known Melissa for many years, and very grateful for everything she does. She's just amazing, and sorry, I'm gonna plug you there a bit, but I I met her in 2007 on the Living Green Expo. And she worked her tail off on that, and just continues to amaze me. But that's not why I'm also here to say I'm just fascinated with all the people that are involved in putting this together and what a great resource it is. And I am planning to go through every presentation. I think I might have a couple weeks worth here, depending on how many hours I can get in per day. So anyhow, thank you everybody for what you're doing. Yeah, that's all I have.
Thank you for that. I think we're going to move on to our next agenda topic, trying to keep us on time here. And Sandy, I'm going to bring you back up. I do have slides. They're basically the same ones you shared, but I'd like for you to talk about the trash to treasure, the waste diversion opportunity within Becker County. And the reason why I chose, we kind of switched gears a little bit. We had a different speaker lined up, but after the Build Reuse conference, or actually rather during it, we realized that we were sharing something Minnesota specific to a platform that was greater than Minnesota. And so people across North America and other countries were hearing something that we haven't had a chance to talk about here in Minnesota, at least at the level that we talked about it at the national conference. And so grateful that Sandy is willing to present today an abbreviated version of what she did present at the conference, which of course is available for viewing once we share those links. So Sandy, I'll be happy to handle the slides, and it's basically the same presentation as last time. So go ahead, Sandy, thank you.
All right, so just a little bit of a background that Becker County is in west central Minnesota. We have a population of about 3,500, and then in the summer it explodes to about 150,000 with tourism. So that's a challenge for solid waste, but it's also a great opportunity. Our population also includes part of the White Earth Indian Reservation. We have 450 lakes in a 12-mile radius, and we have 3 biomes that meet here: prairie, deciduous, and pine. So we are rural Minnesota, and we want to protect it. We want to help that. And so through a partnership with funding from Better Futures, we began Better Futures Minnesota with funding through LCCMR that we also work with. We call it ICWIC, but it's Institutional Community Work Crews, and they're the ones that work with Better Futures Minnesota to kind of gather our product. Also NRRI of Minnesota, U of M that Melissa was just talking about. And then Minnesota Green Corps, of course, is also part of our program too. And so our #1 goal in Becker County was to really divert waste out of the waste stream. And so we just began with Better Futures. My boss and Steve Thomas started a discussion of just how do we divert waste out of the waste stream. And so we began last September in 2020. Kind of an interesting year for everybody, and so it's been a great opportunity. And we've found out that it's an ever-evolving program, and it will continue to change. And we let folks know that it's going to continue to change, and we document everything. It's pretty interesting. So we started out with sales that began. We had 4 sales from last September through April of 2021. And we had 2-day sales. The first day was full price for the products, the prices that we put on it. The second day was a half a day, and we invited local vendors, local reuse stores to come on in and buy things at half price. And so we got those folks on board to help support us. And so once our doors opened and people knew that it was happening, it was pretty exciting. It kind of just built on itself. In October 2020, we started building a new pay station. And then starting in May, we opened our doors, actually the beginning of June, we opened our doors to an actual new reuse facility along with our new pay station. So we have household hazardous waste reuse and our product reuse. And so from June to present and ongoing, we have 2-day sales. The first day, Wednesday, full day, 8 to 4:30, and then Thursdays, 8 to noon, and people can just come in and shop. And we found that the product that they buy in our reuse facility is really complementary to the HHW reuse program. They can buy a dresser and paint it with the hazardous, the good reusable product that's found in our HHW. So this is just an example of some of the items that we get. It's everything from bikes to knickknacks to shelving to dressers. And it started out that we thought we would collect building type materials, lumber, as you see in the picture. And lumber can really be, you know, you get a lot in one day and then nothing in for a couple weeks and then a lot. And so we've kind of filled it in, and people really want the knick-knack kind of items. And so that was interesting. Just, you can see all different types of things, from bikes to, you know, interesting kids' toys, vintage cans. That's been really popular, is the vintage cans you see in the picture. And we get those actually out of our material recovery facility. So we utilize our whole campus. We utilize our material recovery facility, our scrap metal pile, demo, even the transfer station. So it's been pretty exciting. It really opens everything up. So as we started our facility, when we had our sales from September to April, we collected about 12 ton in those months, and we opened in June of this year, and from June to now we've collected 14 ton. So 26 tons so far. That's a lot of product in just over a year. It's been pretty exciting. And also I have I'll share how much we've made too. What's unique about our program, there's other folks, other counties that have this type of program, but most of the programs they give it away. Our program, we actually sell it. Our goal is to make this a sustainable program in our solid waste campus. So part of our partners is to work with local community members, such as reuse buildings or reuse businesses, and they actually are some of our best customers. Most of our product are marked fairly low, and so they come in, buy it, and then share it with others. And so really our tools for success is media. Facebook groups, Facebook swaps are huge here in northern Minnesota, and I'm sure they are everywhere. They're very popular, and I see that posted again and again and again. We kind of keep an eye on how many times it's reposted and that kind of thing, and how many times it's shared. And we get up to 13,000, 15,000 views on it. So for us, that's a pretty big deal in northern Minnesota. We've also posted on Craigslist, which is more interesting. I think it's more time consuming. We have to reply to folks, and it's at night and on weekends, and that doesn't lend itself as well to our program. And then, of course, our reuse retailers, they're really magic to our program. They really find us a resource, and we find them a resource, act as a resource also. We just have a couple things. What some people ask, what do you take? We take everything, and we look at everything that comes in. Is it cloth material? If it's stained, if it's that kind of thing, we don't put it out with bar stools, dressers, bikes. What is salvaged? We keep track of everything, type of items, weight of items, where it comes from on our campus. And so we really have a good spreadsheet basically of what comes in and how much, and I can share what we've collected so far. What's been interesting, we've had a few aha moments during this program. One of the most interesting aha moments is staffing the transfer station staff. When waste comes in, they see it as waste, and getting them to look at waste as a resource rather than as a waste. And so that's coming along nicely. And so we're continuing to work on that. And then to get community involvement. We have a lot of folks that are coming in and saying, where can I donate? And we don't take donations. Actually, what I tell folks is that if you bring something in, paying for the disposal is still necessary, because we're not sure if we're able to sell it or not. But at some point, and we're getting closer to that, where we either will charge a reduced rate, or there'll be no charge depending on what they have. And so people are engaged. They really want to be part of this program. And then we've had businesses that have wanted to partner with us also. We have a local builder, home builder. They build modular homes, and they've donated some lumber, lots of siding, just all kinds of building type materials. We had siding, we had slate tiles, we had granite. It was interesting, and almost everything is gone. We got it in July, and we have very little of that left. And then really for us, another aha moment is we have to have the capacity to take the item and then store it somewhere. And right now, Better Futures Minnesota has a shipping container there that we've been storing items in. So that's a great, again, one of the great things about partnering with other folks. And then really sharing the positives, what we've learned, and the positive impacts in our program. So such as if the transfer station folks find a great find, and they find many, we give them positive reinforcement so they continue to keep looking. And that's really important with our program. So it kind of backs up that, encouraging them to see the waste as a resource, and then really encouraging them to continue to do that. And lessons learned. We kind of learned this lesson the hard way. If you find a product or an item, remove it from the site as quickly as possible. These wonderful bricks that you see in the video here, we collected them and stacked them, and it was beautiful. And when we went back to get them, they were gone. So that was interesting. So we need to, and we continue to document what, where, when, and weight saved item. And then remember, be flexible. Things are, it's an ever-changing program, and we have to be flexible. We're fortunate enough with Better Futures Minnesota to actually win an award, in 2021 Environmental Initiative Award. And so thank you, Better Futures Minnesota, and also thank you to MPCA. We could not do what we do without those partnerships, with the partnerships of Better Futures, the MPCA, and then all of the counties surrounding us. We all have to work together as a partnership. And so this is something that can be duplicated throughout Minnesota. It's not just our county that can do this. We can do this basically everywhere in Minnesota. If you have a transfer station, if you have product coming in, and counties do, it's pretty accessible and pretty available ongoing throughout the counties. So we really encourage folks, if they're interested, call around, check with other folks and see who's doing what, and then make your own program that fits for you. And that's pretty much what we did. And Lisa, can you think of anything from the Green Corps point of view do you have a couple aha moments that really connected for you?
I guess one would be that once customers that came into the transfer station would hear about the program, they hadn't heard about it before, and they hadn't been out to the transfer station in a long time, so it was all new to them. And they were interested in their items being reused. That was important to them. Like some of them, they weren't still happy about having to pay the fee for it, but they liked the idea that their item would be reused again. And so then it wasn't so bad to still have to pay. And I think that's encouraging them to look at their load before they bring it in and separate it out, and maybe even take it somewhere else before they even bring it there, or try and sell it themselves. They're interested, it gets them thinking about it more. They're like, oh, I never thought that someone else could have maybe used this. So then we've even had people bring it right over to the reuse store for us right away, instead of having to pass hands of moving the item multiple times. So that was definitely one major thing that I saw.
Yeah. And I remind folks that ongoing that they may have to pay right now, but this is an ever evolving program. And so our goal is to maybe get to either our much reduced rate or no fee at all. So that's coming, it's ever evolving, and just letting them know, and then also letting them know how much we have saved from landfilling, by diverting the waste. We've saved a lot going out of the landfill, and they appreciate that. And again, that they really appreciate that their product is being used. And then continuing to really advertise, Facebook, newspaper, radio, and it's not a one-time thing, it's an ongoing thing. It's really important. That's what I have.
Do folks have questions for Becker County staff? Comments?
Can I maybe make, oh, go ahead.
Sure. Hi, awesome stuff to hear going on in Becker County. It just gets me jazzed hearing about the reuse of materials, the reuse of resources, and Melissa's nodding. My name is Matt Russell. I'm with Reaply. I think we had presented at Build Reuse as well, but definitely interested in knowing the tracking mechanisms that you're doing for the resources as they come in.
Yep, we have that. And I did forget to share that we had since June, we've had 520 customers, just about 10,000 in sales, 1,600 items sold, 28,000 pounds were sold in that, so 14 ton. And we just basically, I can share what we have, but we actually track it through our solid waste. WasteWorks is what we use in our solid waste transfer station, and we track it through that. So we actually run everything through so it can be taxed. We send everything through WasteWorks, and then we document it in a Excel spreadsheet. Pretty simple.
Good stuff. Thanks.
You bet.
Sandy, I don't know if it's okay to share about our plan for next May to do a visit there. I'm Emily. I'm the executive director for Reuse Minnesota, and Becker County is one of our many municipal or government members. So we're really excited. And Sandy is one of our newly elected board members. She'll be joining us in January. Yes. And both as a member and board member, she's already agreed to host our member meeting in person in Becker County in May. Our date is still TBD, but we do hope that any of you, whether it's from the Twin Cities or up in that area, if you want to see this in person, we would love to have you join us.
Yes, we would.
And I see there's Brian who has his hand raised. Brian, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Trying to get unmuted there. I am with Better Futures Minnesota. I'm the new project manager for the LCCMR grant, and just want to add that we're really excited about what Becker County has done with Steve Thomas in the previous LCCMR work, and the current grant that we're working on is we're trying to duplicate what Becker County has going into a few other counties in greater Minnesota. So I just want to share everybody's excitement that we're hoping to get this duplicated and working on diverting the disposable waste from the landfills into these reusable products. So Sandy, it was nice to see your presentation, and I'm looking forward to working with you and Steve a little bit more up in Becker County.
Absolutely.
So thank you.
Thank you for that, Brian. Welcome to these meetings. Good to connect with you. All right. Well, those were really great developments. We have a few more developments we'd like to share with you, and I'm going to ask Annika to join me on stage, so to speak, that there are some funding opportunities. We get questions a lot about various funding, and we here in Minnesota, we've been asking EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, to offer more built environment grant opportunities. So when we talk in terms of reuse and recycling, Of course, there's a lot of initiatives that are important across the nation, but so is the built environment, especially because it hasn't gotten funding. There aren't the requirements that there are for other types of material management. So Annika, if you'd like to go ahead and talk about some of the funding opportunities, I'll be happy to share the links in chat.
Awesome, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Annika Bergen, and I am one of Melissa's colleagues at the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. And so the two opportunities that I'm going to talk about are the top bullets that are specifically coming from our agency. And so right now we have two grants that are open and accepting applications. The first one is our environmental assistance grants. So if you're familiar with this program, in the past we rotate through different focus areas, and this year and next year's focus areas are on reduction, waste reduction, and reuse opportunities. And so we wanted to make sure that all of you involved with built environment preservation, waste reduction, and reuse activities were aware of this opportunity, because obviously it's a strong space for waste reduction and reuse. And then secondarily, we have the Greater Minnesota Recycling and Composting grants, and those also have some specifics that you'll want to read through in terms of the requirements, but can include other opportunities as well for improving the sustainable materials management of systems in the built space as well. So if you have questions on either of those as you're looking through application materials, if you scroll to the bottom of either of the websites, it lists an email, grants.pca@state.mn.us, where you can send questions about eligibility or some of the requirements spelled out in the request for proposals. And then both applications will be closing in January. So still about a month left on each for those of you that are interested to put forward applications.
I'm also throwing into the chat, and you're welcome to email me if for some reason you don't have access to chat, some of the links that I oftentimes will share when somebody says, do you have ideas for funding opportunities? These are not particularly unique while searching for them, but the state of Minnesota has a lot of different grants. And like I mentioned earlier in today's conversations, mentioning that there are so many topics that are relatable to the built environment. And so don't just look for things like environment or natural resources or, those sort of common buzzwords. Really, look from your own lens as far as what terms might be applicable, and there may be a plethora of funding opportunities available. And so I've also included the grants.gov, the national grants webpage, as well as EPA grants. And again, we keep bringing up to our region and nationwide perspective, our EPA contacts about how much we need support for the built environment. And in this case, support means funding. So we will try to continue to find other type of funding opportunities. Of course, I have to mention that both Hennepin and Ramsey County have deconstruction grants. Ramsey County's grants are also excuse me, did I actually hit enter? I did not. Sorry about that. I thought I had hit enter for my grants now that I'm seeing the ones that Annika is sharing. And with Hennepin and Ramsey County deconstruction grants, we really support sort of that local movement. That shows our management and our decision makers that this is a growing movement. And with Ramsey County also offering their deconstruction grants for commercial buildings, residential and commercial building owners can apply for these grants. They can also apply for moving costs if you wanted to move a structure. Hennepin County also allows for their grant to be used that way. Just creative ways to really normalize this behavior and get the word out that these actions are actually happening within our local or state jurisdiction. So, any comments about that? Any questions? Not that I have any more answers than what we've shared so far. Timothy is bringing up FEMA related. That keeps coming up. Whether it's FEMA related, whether it's related to the COVID related activities, because so many activities are on hold, there is funding or will be funding available for states and jurisdictions to use. Build Back Better, we're curious to see what sort of funding opportunities might exist for that as well. Timony, thank you for that. So it's really great to see those resources available and understanding how that they can be applicable for more things than standard information. Great. Thanks everybody for those contributions. Check them out for those of you who are looking for funding opportunities. We're right on time. And right now we'd like to be able to provide some updates on some of the recommendation specific developments that are going on in Minnesota. For those of you who are a little newer to this group of people, we spent a year working with stakeholders around Minnesota to find out from their perspective, why are we not able to further our built environment sustainability goals? So we here at the Pollution Control Agency, the Environmental State Agency, we have some really good instincts or perspectives as to why the developments aren't happening, but we're not the experts. We're not the ones that are in the built environment system every single day. So we had a work group of over 20 entities from various organizations such as recyclers and deconstruction companies and reuse retailers, cities, counties, tribal representation. We asked them, what are the barriers and what sort of recommendations would help us further our goals? And we had 5 top goals. We're focusing on kind of 2.5 of them. The second and third bullet kind of blend together, but we're working on these 3 initiatives to further some of the goals, not only within the built environment, but as an environmental state agency as well. And I'll give a quick overview, and then I'm going to ask Natalie to join me virtually speaking. We had an original recommendation to have a statewide, state-funded deconstruction training program, and we've been impressed upon us to think in terms of statewide. We know that a good chunk of the population of Minnesota is here in the Twin Cities. That doesn't matter. That we have a workforce that is around the state. We have the need for sustainable building material management around the state. And actually, if you start to think about where all of the Habitat for Humanity reuse stores are, they're around the state, and they're oftentimes in smaller towns. So we would like to have a statewide deconstruction training program, and of course that takes money, and of course money takes time. So there was a request that Rethos made with Better Futures to provide that first level training, and it competed with so many other ideas. It did not get funded. But unbeknownst to me at that same time or similar time, Rethos had actually applied for and secured a small grant for training. And so we're calling it a workshop. We're not calling it training, just so that we can differentiate kind of the level of difference of the amount of training that we're having. But it's a really great development, and I'm very pleased that Rethos was able to secure that grant and is offering this workshop. So Natalie, your thoughts?
Thanks, Melissa. Yeah, so and to reiterate for those unfamiliar with Rethos, we work all around the state and have a robust education program that primarily focused on teaching homeowners, small commercial property owners about rehab, repair of old buildings. And we're expanding that focus to include deconstruction and salvage techniques. So in addition to seeking out funding for a more robust deconstruction training program, in this past year we did develop a 1-hour course, a webinar called Bringing Down the House. That was co-presented by Melissa, Olivia Cashman from Hennepin County, and Molly Flynn from Ramsey County. This was an awesome webinar that we hosted over the lunch hour twice this past year, and particularly sought out real estate agents. So this course was approved for continuing education credit for real estate agents in the state of Minnesota. And so we reached sort of a new audience to explain sort of the basics of deconstruction, kind of a crash course in what the common terminology is and incentives for homeowners in the Twin Cities specifically, or in Hennepin and Ramsey County, I should say. So we're slowly building up, I think, our curriculum potential, our capacity for hosting a more robust deconstruction training program. And like Melissa said, we have a small grant from the National Trust for Historic Preservation to put on a 3-part series of deconstruction workshops. So these are coming next year. And as a preservationist and someone who still advocates for reusing buildings wherever possible, this is a really exciting opportunity because it's coming from a historic preservation entity. What we're really trying to do is make clear connections between deconstruction and salvage and the potential that those salvage materials have for rehab and restoration projects. So kind of bringing two seemingly competing efforts, you might say, together. And really, making a case for normalizing deconstruction and salvage to support the entire built environment, and especially those buildings that are going to stay standing. So I'm very interested in anybody who wants to be supportive of these trainings, of these workshops. I can use all of the expertise and support I can get. It's a small grant, so we're working pretty hard to make the most of those dollars, and appreciate all the partnerships that have brought us to this point. Thanks.
If you're interested in working on some of these developments, there's a slide asking, what would you like to work on, if anything? But if you want to throw your name in chat, or if you want to email either Natalie or myself directly, that'd be great. I'm just pulling up the list of people that we've already gotten interested on this topic. Bear with me just a second and I'll have that open. So we have teams already, essentially, but we know that we're bringing on more people as we start to host these quarterly meetings. And so we very much welcome anybody who's interested in working with us to do so. And again, for those that are new here, we as the MPCA, Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, are the organizations in charge. And we have kind of team leads for some of these topics. And so any little additional help is based on your own availability and your commitment. And so it's not like we have anything prescriptive for you at this point. So Steve Thomas, Joe Bauman, Natalie, of course, and Olivia Cashman from Hennepin County have agreed to form a team to start these ideas. So if others are interested, please reach out to us or throw your name in chat. Again, whatever you want to do for this development is up to you and your workload and how much time you can contribute. So any additional help is welcome. Okay, moving on to the next initiative. And this may look a little different for those of you who are really familiar with our top 5 recommendations. You may be more familiar with the concept of the Deconstruction Ordinance template, and we will lead up to that. But the first step for that first is meeting some of our agency's strategic goals that we have laid out within our current 5-year strategic plan. So while the original recommendation was to create a deconstruction ordinance template for cities, eventually adopting or having some sort of statewide standard across the states, we need to reevaluate what the MPCA's strategic plan is. And we have a couple measures already listed in here in terms of solid waste management is managed for conservation, resource management, energy related issues. We also are trying to prevent and reduce risks from unlined landfills. And so ultimately that means reducing what waste goes to landfills, or rethinking what we're doing with those materials. And so we rightfully get challenged from time to time that we may not have the data or the measures to understand what that really means. And so we do have an agency requirement or a strategic goal that we will have by the end of 2022, 10 local units of government that have adopted an ordinance to have a waste plan for structures that have over 1,500 square foot altered through construction, renovation, demolition, deconstruction. And we've been actually reaching out to a number of cities, and there's actually quite a bit of interest in this. I think people want to go to the next step right away, just like we do, and have the deconstruction ordinances, but we want this first step to help us measure what information, what's happening to materials first. Of course, if materials are managed more sustainably, we absolutely support that. But this is the first step, measure what's going on now. And for those efforts, we actually implemented a new section of the required demolition renovation form that is required for, particularly for asbestos-related demolition activities. And that started, I believe, the beginning of October, that the new portion of the form was available. And we are working on a better data management system to house that information, to gather that information. But I was looking through the forms that were filled out last week, and I found almost 36 forms where people had voluntarily let us know what materials from a demolition was recycled or reused, or both. And it's really exciting to start to see this voluntary information come in. It doesn't say how much, it doesn't necessarily even say where it went, but it's voluntary, so therefore, people are providing us with that basic information. And as those of you who were connected to last quarter's meeting, we got to hear Allie from the city of Nashville talk about how they gathered the same information in a more measurable way. And so having another city where we have a real live example of how that's going, lessons learned and successes all around, we can start to develop how we want to see that moving forward. How do we want to see this actually play out? And we need help. And so we actually have a small amount of funding where we're looking to put together a contract where we'll have contractors help us with the foundation of these templates. And I have a meeting actually set up with our contract folks on Monday, a week from yesterday, so next Monday, where we'll be talking about being able to use kind of a master contract idea to be able to get these templates created in a way that is systematic and formulaic and things like that, but also meaningful for what we're trying to get out of it. And so that's a really good development that we're leading here at the MPCA, but we do need more research and more ideas and more development. And we actually have quite a few people on this team already, so I'm not necessarily sure that we're seeking more people, but I'm certainly not going to turn anyone away who's interested. Annika, I'm going to turn it over to you now for any other additional feedback you'd like to give.
I think you covered it really well, honestly. I don't know that I would layer in. As Melissa noted, it's really intended to set a foundation. When we had started down the path last year of thinking about what to include in a deconstruction ordinance template, a big point of discussion was the fact that without knowing the quantity, condition, and end points of a lot of the materials that are already in the statewide material flows, that it would be difficult to set realistic and achievable targets within a deconstruction ordinance template. So we're excited to work on this first stage to make sure that we have something concrete to build off of and set goals that will be aggressive to ensure that we're making strides in sustainability, but also not setting something that can't be achieved and ultimately receive pushback or result in failure. So that would be all I would add to that.
Thank you. And Olivia and Kelly, if you are still on the line and have anything that you'd like to add as far as how this particular initiative would support or assist you at the local level, please feel free to share those.
Yeah, this is Kelly with the City of Minneapolis and the Public Works Division of Solid Waste and Recycling. We've had a whole construction, demolition, building material section of our zero waste plan since that was originally adopted back in 2017. And making sure that we are gathering the information on how much is going where and what's happening to it, and also setting up some requirements is an action item in our current action plan, which due to COVID is going to have to be postponed a little bit, and some of the efforts that have been underway by the PCA and this group. Another thing that we have internally, our community planning economic development has already done a study about some of the pros and cons and things that would need to change for us to adopt some reporting requirements or even deconstruction requirements in the past. Our sustainability office just actually developed and recently passed a new sustainable building policy, which will have the city at the very least start these efforts for city-owned and leased buildings. which is kind of step one. We want to make sure we're leading by example before we require anyone else to do the same. So we are moving in the direction of these exact items, and definitely want to make sure that what is developed is, you know, at least as consistent as possible with other communities. So contractors aren't doing one thing here, a different thing in St. Paul, a different thing in, you know, Becker County or elsewhere. So I think, you know, our participation in this group and really trying to help make something that's going to work for everyone helps everyone. And I guess I'll pass it over to Olivia, but we are also very appreciative that Olivia and Hennepin County have had their deconstruction grant funding, and Olivia has provided assistance to folks to help start this process. So thank you, Hennepin County, and thank you, team.
Thanks, Kelly. Yeah, I can share where Hennepin County is at. We've been working on an internal construction and demolition waste policy. So similar to what Kelly mentioned at the City of Minneapolis and their sustainable building policy for any projects owned by the county would be affected by that policy. And we've been in a trial phase for about 10 months, testing out the policy on different county projects to collect some data. And then our plan is to take that to the board for approval sometime in Q1 2022. So we can keep you all posted on when that goes through, and then when it's kind of in official policy mode, and would be happy to share that language with other cities or other organizations that are interested. But we've been just trying to make sure that any contract specs aligns with that language, so that when it comes time to bid a project, that everything you know, matches up with the policy, so that things are being followed in. We've learned that there's a lot of follow-up that is needed, so it's been a bit of a longer process than originally anticipated, but we're excited to keep moving it forward. And I think that's all I have around this. Thanks.
Questions or comments from others? Especially if there are other entities that are working on something like this or would like to work on something like this?
Well, Melissa, I would definitely, from Reuse Minnesota perspective, part of our LCCMR grant is not just specific to deconstruction, but reuse policies in general. So, we have a goal as part of one of our activities is to help identify communities that are interested in adopting some policies. So if there's a way that we can be of support, please let me know. I know we've been talking to Hennepin County actually about doing something sort of similar, so we should probably have another conversation on data collection as well with some Hennepin County cities, and City of Minneapolis. But yeah, let us know if there's any way we can kind of support through our work through LCCMR as well.
That sounds great. We'll certainly do that. Actually, that kind of dovetails pretty nicely into the next topic, which is very related. We are offering a Green Step Cities workshop, and the work will start to happen shortly at this point. But we know that not a lot of cities or counties or entities are able to implement a lot of really robust and strategic built environment practices, and it's because it's not easy. We know that, and so we feel it's our duty to provide a foundation for cities to have information and to learn from one another to develop those opportunities. And we are working with the Green Step Cities coordinator, Kristen Rosrisi, on this. And I believe we're going to be able to open this up to counties as well. I'd like us to be able to offer this opportunity to the tribal Green Corps organizations. It's something I didn't know existed until last week. And yes, Emily, the form is now on the website. So when I get a pause, I'll go ahead and throw that onto the chat. But in terms of what we can do for cities, we want to give that sort of foundational information about why this is important from a city perspective, and talk about which best practices relate to the built environment and ways that cities can meet those goals. He's not able to join us, but Steve Skoog from Becker County. Becker's getting a lot of attention for really, really good reasons today. Steve Skoog actually mentioned, and this is a personal comment. He's not representing the county necessarily when he says this. He wanted me to pass along a comment. He says, I'm interested in the group's opinion on a possible expansion of the Green Step City program to expand it and create a Green Step County program. If this happens, the benefits could or would be political buy-in from county boards and possibly from AMC, an acronym I did not look up and have forgotten. Association of Minnesota Counties, I bet. Okay. Possibly getting support from AMC, as the Green Step program is about identifying ways to conserve resources and reduce costs for communities by identifying goals and planning how to accomplish them. Counties can help cities achieve their goals. Expansion of the planning efforts and resources available to assist local unit governments achieve their goals. The planning goal-setting process possibly could and should include townships, as environmental stewardship planning and goals should extend beyond the city borders, especially in greater Minnesota. This process would or could help county leadership teams identify and consider ideas that may not have been considered in the past. And I have shared this with Kristen Rosrisi. It is not the first time that this idea has been brought up, I'm happy to say. And I think there's definitely some momentum for an idea like that. But to know that counties are interested in something that cities are already doing, and knowing that cities and counties do have a really direct and typically positive relationship when it comes to sustainability goals or solid waste goals or climate resiliency goals, I think that at least in concept, something like that could happen, at least at an informal level. And so thank you, Molly, for sharing that updated form with folks. And, you know, for an opportunity like this, we could use a few more members that are interested in helping us with this Green Step Cities workshop. We don't have a date, time. I guess the location will probably be online, but we don't have a date and time yet. We're still planning the agenda, and there's a few of us that are already dedicated, including a couple different Green Corps members helping us with this. So this is an opportunity where people can get involved. If you don't want to present, you don't have to, but there's probably a lot of information needed to be gathered for us to share. And of course, promoting the event is something that we could always use help with. So double checking my notes, seeing a comment. It's one of those where I have actually too many screens on, and so I get different alerts at different times from this meeting. Okay, Molly deciding that link. Okay, great. So for those of you who are representing cities or counties, is this something of interest to you? Would you attend, or would you be interested in attending? Great. Cool. Excellent. Great, great, great. Wonderful. Yeah, and I don't believe that there has to be any limitation that it's only for either Minnesota or Minnesota government. Of course, though, we will be forming the foundation of this particular workshop for Minnesota cities. And thanks to Natalie, she actually is helping me think, as a lot of you are. You're all helping me think. Excellent. Okay. Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I forget that overlap sometimes, Riley. I appreciate that. With other entities letting us know about what's going on at cities, I'm starting to develop a matrix of which cities have which sort of sustainability goals in mind. And Natalie has mentioned to me that there are cities that are enrolled in what's called the Rethos Main Streets program. So smaller towns wanting to either revitalize or somehow continue to improve on their downtown districts are working on preservation goals to keep their downtown intact. That was probably a really bad way of saying what the Main Streets program is, but it's just reminded me that there are cities that are achieving or working towards a variety of other goals for, thanks Jackie for that, related to sustainability. And they may have a different focus, such as preservation, but with all the Green Step cities that we have, and the number of cities that have some sort of solid waste or climate resiliency or zero waste or some other goal, we have a lot of cities that we believe would be very interested in not only this workshop, but implementing some of these practices. And good. And so I think it's one of those things where we, again, it's our job as state and environmental government entities to provide the information for the cities to succeed. And again, knowing that a lot of cities don't have any best practices for the built environment, that means that it's our time to step up and provide some of these resources. So thank you for adding that link for what the Main Street program is. Are there other programs within city and county government related to sustainability that we might not know about here at the MPCA? Does anybody know of any? And, you know, I'm even going to say for those of you who are not in Minnesota, if you have city sustainability programs or accounting programs or other local jurisdiction programs out there, can you please share those with us, whether it's now or emailing me later? That would be great. Are there people interested in working on this that haven't mentioned it yet? Feel free to throw that into chat as well. Okay. Seeing that Northfield has a climate action plan that requires a zero waste plan. Matt, do you want to talk a little bit more about that, please?
Yes, so that was one of the key requirements, and my fingers slipped on the keypad there. So our city council, we just have the draft of it, the final draft of it, we hope, and the city council, in fact, has had a first reading and is considering it. So it's very comprehensive. Rice County also just passed a comprehensive plan that includes a sustainability section for the first time. It's a little bit toothless, but it's a real step in the right direction for our county.
I just wrote what you said so that I can look it up later. Natalie and I had a chance to meet with the Chief Resiliency Officer of the City of St. Paul, and they are interested in kind of reviving their built environment initiatives that were being discussed about a decade or more ago. And I would agree that Northfield has a lot of very ambitious plans going on related to waste reduction sustainability. So I think we'll probably lean a little bit on you, Matt, and others at Northfield, and you know, get some case studies from St. Olaf, as you've given already for us. So having the entities within a city show their dedication to the built environment and some of our sustainability goals, I think will help cities feel like they can accomplish some of these things better. Great. Well, if there's other entities or other programs out there or other cities and counties within Minnesota having a different type of sustainability initiative going on, let us know about that. So we'd like to reach out to them. All right, so we are at the point where we can have this as an open forum for those that are in Minnesota. Please feel free, if there's something that you're working on that you would like to highlight, or there's something that you want to see that's a system change related activity, feel free to either talk about it, to take yourself off mute, or share your thoughts in chat. Emily, do you want to talk a little bit more about your idea, or what you just put in chat, I mean?
Oh, you just mean the other, when you were asking other cities that have sustainability things, I mean, like St. Louis Park has the recycling champions and they have sustainability champions. You've got the several counties with master recyclers. Plymouth has an environmental academy. I just presented there actually talking a little bit about deconstruction as well. So that was great. That's Laura Babcock is involved with that she's a resident over there. But there's, yeah, just, I don't know if that's an appropriate level or if that's not quite the level you're looking at engaging with, but it might be worth reaching out to those folks in case they have inroad or like paths into connecting with people within other parts of the city that would be relevant too.
Yeah, I think ideally when I'm thinking in terms of like comprehensive citywide plans, I am thinking in terms of, you know, again, sort of the either built environment or something that has real teeth to it, to use a phrase that was used differently before. But I think that's actually a really great opportunity to learn more about various cities that do have various programs. I'm going to tuck that away for a later day, and you and I can chat about that one-on-one. But it's one of those where everything is helpful. So, you know, I may have had a different perspective as like citywide, formal, adopted by a city ordinance or something like that. But at the same token, everything is contributing towards some of the same successes. So thank you for that.
Well, and, you know, for better or worse, working in government, we all know like a lot of times ideas percolate up from the bottom, and it just takes a conversation of a resident with a council member or a city staff person to like even get it thinking about it, right? So that's a useful path sometimes. The other thing I just put in, because I'm not sure, I know a lot of people know St. Louis Park has a climate action plan, but they also have a green building policy, and I don't actually know, as soon as I've sent this link, if this is the most up-to-date one. I assume that it is. It doesn't actually have a date on it, but I could ask my former colleague there. But it looks like that, oh yeah, updated July 2020. So this is the most recent one, but they had included some stuff about renovation, or let's see. I thought there were some pieces in here. I'll see if I can pull it out, but some pieces around materials management.
I'm seeing more cities have something like this. I think I was looking at the City of Northfield sustainability website and came across something. Is this, because some of the language that I'm seeing here is really similar to what I saw in Northfields, and is there something formulaic on green building that is being like created, adopted, things like that? I mean, is there, again, something formal that's leading to similar language being used? I mean, I understand that Green Stuff Cities has a foundation for that, but.
The EPA has a whole website with template, you know, with other city zero waste plans that we used heavily in developing ours.
Awesome. Okay, that makes sense. Do we still have representatives from EPA still on this call? Okay, I was going to ask if there was anything related, and something I should probably know or have bookmarked if there is something similar for the built environment, but managing transforming waste, well, that one's not ringing a bell for me. Thank you, Susan. Appreciate that. So, you know, maybe I was going to say, maybe that's something we could have for EPA to do. And I'm like, oh, that's a lot of work, and I can't just ask EPA to do something at a Minnesota meeting. But I know it would be helpful. So, but in the meantime, we're going to be working on our own. So stay tuned for more information on that. Other developments from Minnesota stakeholders. How about for those outside of Minnesota? What relatable activities are you working on that we can learn from? Open forum for anybody.
So I can share. So over at Reapley, one of the things that we're doing right now with the city of San Francisco is helping them with a built environment of recycling their materials through deconstruction and getting those materials to underserved communities in the neighborhood through creating a virtual warehouse program for them. The long and the short of that, and I'm not at liberty to really go into a whole bunch of details today, but the long and the short of it is being able to assist the city with collecting valuable carbon data as well as landfill diversion data as deconstruction happens to inform policy in San Francisco, but also to get those materials over to those communities in need and give them first bite at the apple so that the small businesses that are historically underserved get that one up rather than going to find the new materials first. So that's just kind of a small thing that we're working on right now at Ripley.
Yeah, I had a chance to hear about that at the Build Reuse conference, and we know that a lot of cool things are happening in California, but just like anywhere else, it does take resources and efforts and all that. There's nothing that happens easily. You know, it takes a system to operate a system. So it's no small feat for what's going on in the Bay Area, San Francisco area. So thanks for that update, Matt. Others have anything to share?
I can share a little bit. Back to Minnesota. And I apologize for my appearance. I was in some unheated buildings not too long ago, so still warming up. But I'm Molly Flynn with Ramsey County, and we kind of mentioned that we're just starting our deconstruction grant opportunity. So kind of navigating a lot of questions and inquiries and promoting that. And we're also trying to take a look at some of our internal language for demolitions and renovations that's on county controlled properties. So kind of similar to what other people are doing. Just trying to look internally to make sure that we're doing as much as we can, or maybe we have some influence over some projects. And we're also still, I mean, we've been exploring some training opportunities for deconstruction or salvage, and kind of tying that maybe to other departments working on kind of workforce development, or relating it to as many priorities in the county as we can. So having a lot of those conversations. But yeah, just I guess a lot of little things here and there, but that's basically what we got going on here at Ramsey.
Thanks for that, Molly. And I know that there's been a lot of initiative towards these are things that I focused on a couple years ago, but there's been some developments through some of the inspections that you do at the county level that is connected to or has led up to some of these developments. Do you want to talk about the relationship, particularly seeing we were talking about that demo renovation form being updated? Can you share a bit more about what the county does that overlaps? Because even I'm not sure that I fully have followed all of the developments, especially if they happened before I joined or before you joined.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, kind of the root of what ties us to a lot of building materials reuse initiatives is our pre-demolition inspection program at the county. And it pretty much, we inspect all buildings slated for demolition or with plans of a major renovation that includes like removing load-bearing walls. We treat the same as a demolition. But we basically walk through, make sure all of the hazardous materials are managed properly, including like requiring an asbestos survey, making sure the asbestos has been abated, all the hazardous materials, like if there's any fluorescent lighting, mercury component switches, or appliances are properly recycled. And so just because we're in houses right before demolition, we see the opportunity for a lot of reuse and salvage. Sometimes we walk into really nice houses that are coming down in the next week or two, and we can kind of identify that there's an opportunity to have more conversations. So we already are engaging our contractors in a lot of different ways, but we kind of introduce more of a conversation about building materials reuse, salvage, trying to get it in the background of people's minds a little bit earlier on, and initiating that thought process that there could be beneficial reuse, and that's kind of what sparked us to figure out how to provide better resources and bulk up what we're doing at the county. It's also very similar. Hennepin County also inspects and has a pre-demolition program. It's a requirement that all hazardous materials are removed prior to demolition, but at the state level, but there's only 2 counties that I know of that actually have a a county inspection program that confirm that they are. So we're already tracking a lot of materials from a demolition. We asked to see their dump tickets to make sure they're going to the proper landfills, construction demolition landfills, or reuse, or yeah, I mean, wherever they could go if they're being salvaged, reused, recycled, and answer questions if they ask about certain material types and outlets. So this is just an extension of that. If you have any questions, feel free to, I can put my email in the chat. I think I missed that earlier, but I'm happy to answer any other questions about it. And I guess how it relates to the form, that kind of specifically asks about asbestos and the plan for asbestos and contractor information. And the addition to the form is now kind of a more robust, just an optional question about more materials management. So for statewide projects or projects statewide. So some of what we already kind of do, it's a structured way of asking for it on a state form.
Yeah, and getting back to that form, so other entities sort of encouraged us to update that form. So it was outdated already. So the form, the demolition, renovation, and now deconstruction form, hoping that people might consider that as a material management option. We were getting some questions from cities and counties who might actually have requirements related to notification of demolition and they're not being notified. And so we had Emily when she was with the city of St. Louis Park, we had Olivia, we had Andy Bolander, who represents a contractor who frequently fills out the form. We had some people give us some insight and some thoughts on the particular form and what additions we should make. And we actually had really great timing of bringing this topic up because the person who is now in charge or has been in charge for the last couple of years of our asbestos program here at the Pollution Control Agency came here from Department of Health. And not that other previous staff members would have been opposed to this, but Colin Boysen, who's listed on the form, he's our program coordinator here at the MPCA, really embraces the sort of understanding, at least, you know, the foundational understanding of where materials are going, and believes that more sustainable building material management methods should be considered. And so working with him on being able to create additions to this form and ask where the materials are going, and even asking the question of who the building owner is. So sometimes the building owner is not the decision maker on the building material management. And we kind of wanted to bring that back in at least a little bit more formally, but still in an optional format. So we're trying to gather more information that makes sense in the data gathering sense, but also the education and awareness sense. And Colin really supported us in all of those initiatives. And of course, when I also say Colin, I'm talking about management at the Pollution Control Agency and solid waste, who also support that. So of course, all of these decisions go through our chain of commands and layers of management. So thanks to those that are doing that. Let's see here. Okay, thanks for sharing that information and your email address, Molly. So, are there other developments people would like to talk about?
Yeah, this is Olivia from Hennepin County. I just wanted to follow up to Molly's great description of Ramsey's pre-demolition inspection program. Here at Hennepin, we've built our program off of Ramsey, so appreciate all of their expertise and experience in that area. And we are working with cities on a voluntary basis here in Hennepin County, so we're currently in about half of the cities getting notified, and I think there's still a lot of opportunities to kind of refine, working with cities and getting notified in as far in advance as possible so that there's more time to work with the contractor on salvage opportunities. And I hear from contractors a lot that the process is different in each city. So just trying to get creative about what the county or even the state could do to streamline some of that while not making it too cumbersome for both the cities and the contractors. And I don't necessarily have an idea for a solution yet, but just wanted to throw that out there in case other folks, have ideas or thoughts on that area.
Great, thanks for that information. And I do see Jackie Klein has posted that they were trained by MPCA staff. I'm guessing maybe by you, Jackie?
Yep.
For her.
And probably none of the people that are there anymore. I know that Greg is.
Yeah. I remember working with Jackie way back when she was the solid waste inspector. I don't know if that was the official title back then. I was the hazardous waste.
I think I was running the asbestos program at the time.
Gotcha. That makes sense. A lot of sense. Yeah, I was the hazardous waste licensing coordinator, and that's actually where I've gotten some of the connections that I still have today in the built environment is based on hazardous waste management. So funny how things sometimes comes full circle. So last call for developments. Anybody else want to share anything at this point, inside or outside of Minnesota? I'm going to put in chat, this is a link that I share frequently, but we keep having people who are not aware that we have a monthly newsletter, and the last one went out late last week, and particularly having to share information about today's meeting. So people can sign up to receive email updates. We send out about basically one email a month at this point. And sometimes if there's something hot like a grant opportunity or something like that, we might send it out more frequently. But you can see the latest newsletter article as well as sign up for it through that particular link. And I'm also wrapping up with topics right now. I just want to thank everybody who presented today or contributed in one way or another. This is a team effort, and we will continue to have these quarterly meetings so that people can understand what's going on in Minnesota and beyond as it relates to the initiatives here in Minnesota. And Norm, you're welcome to speak up if you'd like.
Okay, Melissa, just very quickly. We've been working with the American Wood Council on their reuse wood service. And what it is a free service that the American Wood Council provides. For them, it's a public relations piece to let people know that wood is a reusable resource. And essentially, it's a big directory and guide of all of the organizations and businesses that reuse wood across North America and Canada. So I gave a link to it in the chat, and we're working with the American Wood Council to get the word out that anyone who reuses wood, whether it be people who turn it into waste wood into pellets, or people who take wood and resaw it, or whatever it may be, to visit the site, get listed, and grow the directory so that it's more and more useful. So we're just embarking on on some PR for the reuse wood site, and we'll be looking especially at areas where we have connections, Minnesota being one of them, Delaware being another one. So I'll be in touch with you, Melissa, to see if I can pick your brain for the state of Minnesota on how to get the Minnesota section of reuse wood expanded and get as many wood reusers in the state listed and active on it as possible.
That sounds great. And with an exercise I did a couple years ago, about this time of the year, I had a little bit of downtime, and I started looking up, not specifically for wood, but I happened to come across quite a few listings of reclaimers and wood reusers. And a lot of it, of course, naturally is related to barnwood, especially in rural Minnesota. There's a lot more companies out there than I actually anticipated, and I only spent like an hour, so I just made myself stop because it was actually so interesting, so fascinating, finding so many connections and resources, but I needed to move on to a different project at that time. So Emily Barker being with Reuse Minnesota, she's the executive director. Sounds like there's a very natural connection there. And so Norm, I can introduce you to Emily via email pretty easily.
Sounds good. and we'll do the work for it. We basically will, do the mailing and so on to contact people who aren't registered. So we're not asking for Minnesota to do work for it, simply to make a connection with you guys, and maybe we can get Minnesota to be the state with the most reuse wood listings in North America. And then, and we find it's being quite well used. We get all kinds of people contacting us from, depending on what they do, everywhere from consumers who have a little bit of this or a little bit of that, to businesses that are looking for ways to reuse waste wood that they otherwise were going to landfill. Oops.
That's great. Thank you, Norman. And are there any last comments from anybody? Hearing none, I think we've done a fantastic job sharing and providing information. Between this meeting and the next meeting, we are going to really be focusing on some of those topic-specific initiatives. So again, going back to the deconstruction training, going to the waste management plan ordinance templates, as well as the Green Step Cities workshop. We're going to be having meetings with those that are interested in those topics for us to develop those ideas further. And so anybody who's interested in either any of those topics, feel free to reach out to me directly on getting involved. And even if you're just interested in staying in the loop on them, you don't even have to commit yourself at this point on them. So be sure to stay tuned to the newsletter and the website, MPCA's website on these topics. And we'll start setting up a meeting for March for our next quarterly meeting. So thank you all for attending and have a great day.
Thanks, Melissa. Di.